If you know me, you already know that when I was 28 years old, I went through my first heartbreak, and it was the most difficult thing in my life that I'd ever dealt to up to that point. And it got me started on a new journey, and it got me asking new questions. And within a short time frame, I was introduced to plant medicines as a teacher, a teacher of sorts that could maybe help me through that period and help me get some answers. Uh, and in the short term, it really opened up a lot more questions than it did answers. Um, but that led me on a new path, and that path has taken me into some of the darkest places I've ever been, and the most beautiful, and the depth of love in all of its extraordinary nature. Um, and today I really wanted to share what I've been going through lately in the last month or so. Today, it's October 2021, and I'm still in feelings that are new to me. And I'm kind of going through the motions right now, and I thought I'd just express some of the goods and the difficult from what I'm going through. But to give it a bit more context, in 2019, I think, one of the lessons that I'm not going to describe in total detail here, but I went to Peru to go work with the plant medicine ayahuasca. And one of the lessons that really overwhelmed me at that stage in my journey was having these universal experiences where, in a very deep sense that resonates on all levels throughout my daily life today, is that the world we live in, this container we call reality, is a perfect architecture. And you might hear that and say, it's imperfectly perfect. And that's a whole philosophical inquiry to go on another time. But the answer really is that it is both. And there's a perception that you, at this moment, are resonating one way or another more with, whether it's perfect or it's imperfect. But a truth that got instilled in me in that trip to Peru, it didn't end up being actually from ayahuasca, it was from another plant called huachuma. But the lesson and the understanding was that this is a perfect architecture. The whole container is an infinite container of potentiality. You hear people today talking about like how perfect and bewildered by the architecture of something like Bitcoin. That's what I feel when I just am in the world. That is what is occurring. We are in a perfect architecture that allows for every possible type of permutation. And like I said, I don't want to go into the whole breakdown of that understanding, because in many ways it's beyond words. But that understanding has given me a lot of courage to face things, which I now call like darker things, more difficult things, more fear-oriented energies, with a new understanding. And what I like to, how do I say this? The moments and the experiences that we have in our day-to-day experience are perfect. They're different and they all vibrate at a different level, but they are perfect in nature. And what I've been experiencing in my last two ceremonies and just throughout the month, it's like an anxiety within me that I'm feeling, and I'm not sure what it is yet. And that's okay. But in my last ceremony that I did on the island, I actually went through an experience that I'd never had before. And that experience was just a deep, deep level of fear, more fearful than I have ever felt, hands down, in my life ever. And I have a whole bunch of ideas of what it could have been, but I didn't get a deep level of clarity in the moment when I was having it. But the feeling was very powerful and it was very real. And I actually ended up crying from a place of fear. And I have never in my life cried from a place of fear. Uh, it was awful. Like if you had to like summarize it, but when I was 28 in the early days, I learned how to cry. I actually learned how to cry when I was about 28 years old, and it was actually a very liberating experience in my life, and a very powerful and complete experience in itself. Learning how to embrace that side of emotion and open up to the full spectrum of what can be experienced. So I've cried from happiness, and I've cried from sadness, especially during those heartbreak years. And those experiences were in their own right very magical and beautiful. And I carry them today, and they've taught me a lot, opening up to that side of my emotional life. But this new experience of crying from a place of fear and just like really contracting into fear energy, which, like I said, I'm not clear on what it is yet at this point in my life and journey, but what I want to really say is that it was powerful and beautiful and complete as it was. And I think that's a really important thing to realize in the day-to-day life that you have and experience just everything. You're having this dynamic experience with all sorts of possibilities and potentiality, and all the experiences are different and powerful, and the interesting part is that they're complete. They're complete moments that are perfect in their own right. And that's, I think, what has given me a lot of courage to go into the darker places in my own mind, in my journeying. And sometimes I look at like the journeys that, in the early years, I used to have so much journeying that was just all about love, all about love, all about love. And I think back and I'm just like, maybe that was just to prepare me, to give me the confidence and courage to realize that this place is perfect, so that I could realize that in the depths, so that when I do go into these places that you wouldn't call beautiful and perfect, you would actually label them as horrible and just awful and fear-oriented, which they are if you had to try and describe them. But they are complete and perfect and just whole. They are whole, complete moments. And I don't know really how to instill that anymore, but this moment I was having out in my last ceremony, it's just so powerful, and I was so present, and it was inescapable. I couldn't get away from it. It was just in my chest, and fully I was contracted, and yeah, and I have, like I said, I'm not going to go into why I think I was having those experiences, but I just wanted to share that, is that if the world is going through a really interesting transformation right now, and there's so many theories about what is really happening, and the truth is, I have my own theories, but at the end of the day, I don't know. But I know that these new dynamic experiences are opening up to me. And if you're watching this video at this time, I'm sure you're going through something yourself. Some of us are having the best years of our lives. Some of us are having the worst possible years of our lives. But one thing I always remember is that nothing lasts. It's like the fundamental law of Taoism it's the law of change. Nothing lasts. So the moments that you have, whether you call them good or bad, bring presence to these moments, these full, complete, powerful experiences. Sometimes they're powerful, fear-oriented, awful, seemingly awful experiences, but sometimes they're beautiful, both equally powerful for your evolution and for your growth and for your learning. And just when you bring that understanding to experience, it opens you up to a whole new world of completion, right? Everything you do is complete just the way it is. You don't need to try and change everything all the time. It's just you're having dynamic, full, complete experiences that are on this full spectrum of vibration. And I think that's a big part of living a complete life. We're not chasing and identifying only with good, so-called good experiences. You're you're allowing all of it. You're learning to hold the whole thing, to learning to hold it all. And that's really what I wanted to share, is that I had a full and complete, whole, fear-based cry the other day, and it was unique, and I had never experienced anything like it. And I think it has moved through me now, and maybe I'll figure out what it was, and maybe I won't. But allowing experiences to hit you fully and not trying to resist it. I facilitate and host with plant medicine journeys for people, and it's one of the programs that I run, and it's actually one of the main things I actually help people prepare for their journey. And one of the key ingredients, there's three. It's having a deep intention for your journey, bringing a tremendous amount of courage to the journey so that you can face whatever it is needs to arise, whatever the teaching is that needs to arise. And then ultimately the last one is surrendering into these experiences. And I think it had been a long time since I had really needed to surrender, and I feel like all the years of me doing these ceremonies and helping other people go through them, it's paid off, because when those moments come where everything about the physical experience or the mental experience or the emotional wants to say no and try and avoid it and resist it, part of me at this point, I know that it's okay. You can take the moment to be present with something that has its own teaching and it has its own meaning behind it, and I don't need to avoid it, and it will pass. And that gives me the confidence now to just allow the fullness of it to hit. So I'm not sure if I can go say any more clearly, or I could keep going in circles, but yeah, one of the things I've embodied at this point, and maybe it'll stay for the rest of my life, and maybe it won't. Maybe I'll change my mind and I'll decide that the world is imperfect. But as it is now, the reality as I see it is a complete architecture of magnificence. It is the architecture that makes the entire thing operate and allows for all this dynamic experience infinitely possible in every direction. That is what I consider a perfect architecture. Some people call it God, some people call it the universe. The universe is perfect. It's perfectly engineered. That's how I like to. I've been saying it lately. You know, and maybe I just have to have an even worse experience before I decide that it's not perfect and it's an imperfect world. But yeah, if that helps, you go through something that you need to go through right now, or you have been going through, take the time to be present with where you're at, because nothing lasts. And that's something I learned too in my early years with heartbreak. Is I remember those moments of really paying attention, because I knew that there was something powerful happening and it won't last. So you have to pay attention while you have the opportunity to experience something profound, even if it may not be pleasant or comfortable. Be present with the completion of what it is in front of you.